The Napoleonic Wars, one of the most transformative conflicts in European history. Spanning more than a decade, these wars reshaped borders, toppled empires, and created one of history's most iconic figures, Napoleon Bonaparte. Today we'll explore the causes, key battles, and legacy of the wars that left an indelible mark on Europe and the world. From the rise of revolutionary ideals to the epic battles that defined an era, this journey will uncover the events that shaped modern Europe and beyond. The roots of conflict. The Napoleonic Wars didn't emerge out of nowhere. Their roots lie in the French Revolution of 1789, when France overthrew its monarchy and declared itself a republic. The revolution brought sweeping changes, but it also plunged the country into chaos. Amid this instability, a young general named Napoleon Bonaparte rose to prominence. His early victories in Italy and Egypt made him a national hero, and by 1799, Napoleon seized power through a coup d'état, becoming first consul of France. His leadership during a time of turmoil made him the face of a new, strong France. In 1804, Napoleon declared himself emperor, signaling his ambition not only to rule France, but to dominate Europe. His coronation represented a dramatic break from the republican ideals of the Revolution and cemented his status as one of the most powerful men in Europe. However, Napoleon's rise alarmed the monarchies of Europe, many of which saw him as a direct threat to their own power. This fear set the stage for the Napoleonic Wars, a series of conflicts between Napoleon's France and various coalitions of European powers determined to check his growing influence. Early campaigns and victories. Napoleon's military genius quickly became evident on the battlefield. His campaigns were marked by innovative strategies, rapid movement, and surprise attacks. One of his most famous victories came in 1805 at the Battle of Austerlitz, also known as the Battle of the Three Emperors, where he decisively defeated the combined forces of Russia and Austria. This battle is widely regarded as Napoleon's masterpiece and cemented his dominance over Central Europe. The victory allowed him to effectively control much of the continent, consolidating his power as the supreme military leader of the era. However, not all of Napoleon's campaigns went as smoothly. That same year, in 1805, the French Navy suffered a significant defeat at the Battle of Trafalgar, where Britain's Admiral Horatio Nelson crushed the combined French and Spanish fleets. This battle ensured Britain's naval supremacy for the rest of the conflict and ended any hopes Napoleon had of invading the British Isles. He assembled a massive army, over 600,000 strong, known as the Grande Armée, and marched into Russia. His goal was to quickly capture Moscow and force a decisive peace. However, the Russians employed a scorched earth tactic, retreating and burning their own cities to deny Napoleon's army supplies. By the time Napoleon reached Moscow, he found the city abandoned and in flames. With winter setting in and no supplies, Napoleon was forced to retreat. The brutal Russian winter, combined with constant Russian attacks, decimated his army. Of the 600,000 troops that began the campaign, fewer than 100,000 made it back to France. This disastrous invasion marked a turning point in the Napoleonic Wars, exposing the vulnerabilities of Napoleon's seemingly invincible army. The fall of Napoleon. The failed Russian campaign emboldened Napoleon's enemies. In 1813, the Sixth Coalition, comprising Britain, Russia, Austria, Prussia, and Sweden, launched a new offensive. They won a decisive victory at the Battle of Leipzig, also known as the Battle of Nations. Napoleon was forced to retreat, and by 1814, coalition forces captured Paris. Napoleon, facing insurmountable odds, abdicated the throne and was exiled to the island of Elba off the coast of Italy. His first exile marked the beginning of the end of his reign. But Napoleon wasn't finished yet. In 1815, he escaped from Elba, returned to France, and rallied his supporters for one last bid for power. This period, known as the 100 Days, culminated in the famous Battle of Waterloo. There, Napoleon faced off against the British army, led by the Duke of Wellington, and Prussian forces under Gebhard Leberecht von Blücher. The battle ended in a crushing defeat for Napoleon, who was subsequently captured and exiled to the remote island of St. Helena in the South Atlantic. This time there would be no return, and Napoleon spent the remainder of his life in exile, dying in 1821. The legacy of the Napoleonic Wars. Though Napoleon was ultimately defeated, his legacy continued to shape Europe for generations. After his final downfall, the victorious powers convened at the Congress of Vienna in 1815 to redraw the map of Europe and restore the old monarchies that Napoleon had overthrown. The Congress sought to create a balance of power that would prevent any one nation from dominating Europe as Napoleon had done. It was an attempt to restore stability after years of conflict and upheaval. Despite their efforts to turn back the clock, the changes Napoleon had introduced couldn't be undone. One of his most lasting legacies was the Napoleonic Code, a legal framework that enshrined the principles of equality before the law, protection of private property, and the separation of church and state. This code influenced legal systems not only in Europe, but across the globe, from Latin America to parts of the Middle East. His impact wasn't limited to military conquest. His reforms and ideas helped shape the modern world. Napoleon also spread revolutionary ideals of nationalism and liberalism, which inspired movements for independence and reform throughout Europe and beyond. The wars unleashed nationalist sentiments in places like Germany and Italy, eventually leading to the unification of both countries later in the 19th century. The enduring impact of the Napoleonic Wars. The Napoleonic Wars left a lasting imprint on the world. They marked the end of one era, the age of monarchies that dominated Europe for centuries, and the beginning of a new one shaped by ideas of equality, nationalism, and individual rights. Napoleon's ambition, military genius, and political reforms made him one of history's most complex figures. Though he sought to dominate Europe, his legacy is far more nuanced, as he both built and destroyed in equal measure. So, was Napoleon a visionary leader who modernized Europe, or a conqueror whose ambitions caused unnecessary suffering? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this exploration of history, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into the pivotal events that shaped our world.